to be honest, it's just getting to a point where I personally feel like lethargic with all this, like COVID-19 and the news and the pandemics and the new numbers and the new cases and all this bickering back and forth and whether Fauci's saying this.
It just really
and
feels like
Birx.
everybody's spinning tires right now.
Yeah,
Like,
I
I
mean,
feel like we made no progress. Like in the beginning, it felt like, okay, back in March, April, it was like, all right, we're gonna shut down. This is needed, blah blah blah, and then we're gonna reopen. It'll all be good. And now, I mean, it's August, and it feels like really from like June through now August, like the last 2-3 months, there's been like no progress. Like
No.
it doesn't feel like
Remember that
anything's
we
different.
actually, I think it was
Like is anything today different? What is it today? August 6th or 5th?
yeah 6.
Than June 6th, 2 months ago? Does
No.
it feel any different?
No, the thing is that I think we recorded like 2 weeks ago saying that 6 months into or 5 months into a pandemic, we know nothing more basically.
Well,
And
the other thing though that actually I'll say in disagreeing with what I just said, that is really underreported and it makes me question agendas is that there's actually a lot of treatments now that work really well, like hydroxychloroquine with zinc seems to work really well. They used it in a lot of countries now. Korea uses it. France uses it. They use it in many places here in the U.S. Remdesivir seems to be working pretty well. That one was more of a question mark, and that one seems to be working better. Like it seems like treatment actually works pretty well now. Like we have the treatment. So
well, you can see that
if that's the case, then no pun intended. But if that's the case, then okay, maybe we're gonna have more cases and it's gonna keep spreading if we reopen. But if we have solid treatments that basically, because it really seems like the hydroxychloroquine, like you take it for a few days in most cases and you're totally fine, you're good. Like so if it's just like that, like because there's a lot of sicknesses that you can get and you're sick for 3-4 days and then you're fine. If that's what this becomes, okay, then maybe we can just go back to normal. You know, because obviously the only people that are still at risk is obviously the older population.
Yes.
But especially for younger and not at risk people, maybe it is time to reopen. I mean, but it's just I don't even want to say this because it's like I don't know, it's so
but that's
politicized that
the problem is the
like
reason
people
why
will get
I'm-
upset with me for thinking that.
Right.
I'm like,
Well,
okay,
and
fine.
you
It's
and
just my
everybody else,
opinion.
but-
I'm not a doctor, but it's just my interpretation basically.
But the thing is, the reason why I'm just totally like, I don't give a fuck anymore, to be honest, is that it has gone from being a medical health issue to becoming a political issue.
Yeah, that's the problem.
And that is the
the
thing.
problem.
That's when I totally disengage, because when all the medical community with the politicians and stuff are trying to find a common solution to a pandemic, which is affecting the entire world, and you say, okay, all the world, top-notch scientists, epidemiologists, and everybody's researching this thing to see how we can find a common solution for once, which is the first podcast on information and things that I was reading were real experts. They said, you know, the good thing is that for once, the medical community from all countries that usually are fighting or competing just like anybody else to have the best medications and the best vaccines and all that stuff, for once we're all united. And with the technology that we have, there were doctors in the US communicating with doctors in China and in Europe and this and that, trying to exchange results and testing and information to come up with a common solution to a problem that is affecting the entire world. And that was very good. But then, like you said, lately, it just has become so politicized. Everything is political now.
Right,
Whether
even-
wearing a mask,
but
whether
it's
not
like-
wearing a mask.
Like
whether
hydroxychloroquine, I don't understand.
Exactly.
So this is the funny thing, my personal backstory with hydroxychloroquine. So back in February, when nobody seemed to be concerned with the pandemic, I was very concerned. And I was like starting to look up what treatments there were. And I remember there was a doctor that I followed on Twitter that was talking about hydroxychloroquine, and he basically made a video explaining how the virus works with RNA replicase and everything, and how basically hydroxychloroquine plus zinc, basically zinc cannot penetrate the cell barrier very easily, but the hydroxychloroquine allows it to get
Breaks
in,
it down,
and then
right.
the zinc can stop the RNA replicase, I believe is how it works. So it stops the virus from replicating and spreading through your body. And so he was talking about, this is in February, and he says, it looks like this works pretty well, and this may be like the treatment that we use. And so I was online, but there had been no studies, there had been no proven cases. So he says, in theory, this will work, but we don't know yet, basically is what he said. and I came very close to buying it. I just couldn't find a reputable place to buy it from, and there wasn't official studies, so I didn't feel comfortable taking something that I was afraid of.
And
But
some people ended up buying the wrong version.
right. Well, because there's chloroquine.
Right.
Not hydroxychloroquine, chloroquine, which they use for like fish
tanks
tanks and
right.
and
And that's poison, basically.
that's just people who are kind of ignorant and should
Right.
understand something before they take it. But my point was, it was just like, it's just a treatment. There's nothing political about it. It was just
Right.
like, this is a doctor who was talking about this, and I was interested in it, and I kept an eye on it. And then, by the way, like 3 weeks later on eBay, it was totally sold out. Everywhere was totally sold out. And it was like, okay, this is working. And now doctors prescribe it everywhere. But now, because certain politicians talk about it, then it's like becomes politicized. And it's like, why?
And they go like,
Why is it political? It's a treatment. What does that have to do with politics?
Right. I mean, like that and everything. I mean, but the problem is that people, it's very aggravating because you cannot find a news source that gives you the actual truth about the numbers. You know, you keep seeing, oh, the U.S. does all these cases and all that. There's fatality rates, and the worst case, the U.S. is the worst country in the world as far as treatments. And it's like, okay, give me some specifics, because you cannot just throw a number. Yeah, the U.S. has the most cases. We discussed it many times. Yeah, we have the most people, the most technology, and probably the most accurate reporting of cases. Because if you go to, Brazil, where the president of Brazil is saying, we're not going to report numbers anymore, out of the blue. And the whole medical community and all that stuff, and the WHO and all that stuff said.
It looks like it's getting really bad in India too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, these are countries with 1.2, 1.3 billion people. I mean, we are like 330, 350 or whatever here, million. And those guys are like 4 times where we are. And not only that, their conditions are not very, very, they're not a developing country, if that, in many places they are in really bad conditions.
Yeah, in India, if you're not part of the upper class, you're fucked.
Basically. Exactly. So I mean, if we report everything in the US, because we have all this technology and this truth in advertising, so to speak, yeah, we're gonna have all these cases reported. But I read, like I said, press from all over the world, and then there's even countries like Spain or France or whatever. It says, oh no, we're not reporting these numbers. Oh, now we just discovered that in this nursing home there were 150 deaths that were misreported, and they come with numbers all over the place and all that stuff. It's like, okay, let's just look at the numbers. Don't use the little soundbite that is convenient for your cause. And that's when everything becomes politicized from everybody, from the left, from the right, from the middle, from the press, from the clickbaits, from all that shit. And then on top of that, you say, okay, well, we tried the confinement. Maybe it did work.
Well, confinement works. It's obviously
right, but that's supposed to be a short-term
solution.
Like
confinement obviously works because then you can't spread it if everybody's confined.
Exactly.
But you can't confine forever because then the economy just gets destroyed.
Not only the economy. I mean, there's unintended consequences of confinement.
I think the problem is...
you have people that have been confined and then they start having other issues. They have mental health issues. You have suicide rates going higher. You have domestic violence going higher. You have divorce rates going higher. You have a lot of things that affect families that are together. Kids are not going to school. Parents need to now reschedule their plans, because if the kids don't go to school, who's going to take care of the kids if they're studying from home with computers or whatever? They need to, I would just read a statistic saying, okay, 50% of the parents are trying to reschedule their work schedule to say, I'm going to go super early and come early home, and then my husband is going to be the opposite. So basically somebody's home. There's a lot of consequences from saying you're confined.
The problem I'm more discussing, obviously the pandemic, logistics is one thing. People will figure it out, but it's beyond just the virus is just an obvious example of it. But it seems like we've lost the ability to have nuanced conversations, unemotional, nuanced conversations on all sides. And I don't know exactly why that happened. I don't know why you can't just have a conversation about things without things becoming inflammatory and without
or becoming politically
right. Well,
inclined.
That's what I mean. I don't know. I mean, you can't have most of the problems we have. This is the thing. I was thinking about this, and I was like there's the famous. Einstein saying that applies to a lot, which is he says, always try to make things simple, but not simpler. And I think we have and it's human nature, but everybody is trying to make things simpler than they are. But unfortunately, we live in a complex world filled with complex systems interconnected with other complex systems. So this idea of a simple answer is just not going to work.